Hey y'all, it's Zai here with the CommandHer Network, and I am so excited to introduce you all to a new project that I've been working on called the Passion Tea. The Passion Tea is all about exploring the lives and careers of Caribbean and African women. My first guest is a trial winning trademark and business law attorney located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Born to Trinidadian and Guyanese parents, she has taken on a major role in helping Caribbean business owners build their brand. She also runs an informative blog called West Indian Diplomacy, which focuses on the history and politics of India, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, and the United States. Last year, she launched a petition that could potentially be one of the key steps in helping to preserve the slave records of Indian indentured servants and enslaved Africans. Please join me in welcoming attorney Melissa Goolsarran Ramnauth. Melissa, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me and reaching out to me. I'm so glad to get to know you.
Thank you. You as well. How's the weather right now in Florida?
Well, as you could probably see from the window, it's nice and sunny and hot outside. It's probably 80 right now.
Oh, I am just jealous because it is raining back and forth here in Georgia. So I wish I
Oh,
could switch places with you right now.
but at least it's probably not too cold like the north.
Oh yeah, no, nothing compares to the cold weather up north for sure. I'm definitely looking forward to our conversation today. I initially came across your work via Instagram, and it was actually one of your articles in which you had discussed the history of slaves being brought to Guyana. During that time, I also came across your petition, which we'll talk more about later. And I said to myself, we've got to get more people involved and informed on this effort. Now, you were born and raised in Florida, right?
Yes, born and raised in Miami.
To parents who are Trinidadian and Guyanese.
Yes.
Take us back to your childhood and being raised by your parents. Tell us about your upbringing of being raised in a Trinidadian and Guyanese household.
Okay, sure. I made some notes. So if you see me looking, that's what I like to do. I love to write so I don't forget anything. And
Oh, that's fine.
so our household, it was loving. It was a lot of love for the culture, the food, the music, and it was just a place where you could always be proud of where you came from. It was no doubting who you are, where you came from. And
Mhm.
so my parents provided us with a lot of love and security, and we really only had to, focus on our school, on our education. We didn't have anything else to worry about. And so now, I've transitioned, I'm married now, and now I still have like the same security from my husband too. So it's nice that it continued on.
Wonderful. That sounds so pleasant. And I'm not sure if you've noticed lately on social media, but there has been an uptick in Caribbean influencers and content creators who who are exploring our experiences of growing up with Caribbean parents. And just like with some of the things you've mentioned, they are also focusing on themes where they're talking about how our parents were tough on us regarding our education, our responsibilities at home, and also making sure that we made the right choices with our career endeavors. How did your parents support your dreams and prepare you to achieve your goals?
But yeah, so um they well, I guess it wasn't really hard because if I had like a different career path that was, it might have been a different outcome, maybe not, but I wanted to be a lawyer from very early on. And so I don't think many parents would object to their children
Mhm.
being lawyers. And like I mentioned before, they just, supported us. They were provided us all the security we need, and their whatever path that we wanted to take, they were going to support us.
When you think back, what were your fondest memories of learning about your Guyanese and Trinidadian culture growing up?
We never knew specifics, just like how most of us, we don't know which ancestor came to Trinidad and Guyana, why they came. And
Mhm.
so I always got excited when my parents and grandparents just told us about how they would live because, they didn't really have access to that type of education as to where their ancestors came from. So whatever they provided us, whatever they talked about conversationally, like how life was for them back then,
Yes.
I just loved hearing those bits and pieces because that's all that we can get, that we could have gotten at the time. And so that kind of helped me feel a little bit closer to knowing my history that much more.
I got to know, do you cook?
I try, like, cooking is not inherent. Like, I assume the older generation, our parents and grandparents, has just come second nature to them. And so I'm just trying to learn so that way my kids know this is how to make roti. I thank God there's like the internet and YouTube,
Mhm.
but I want them to grow up in a house where their parents are making roti for them. So I do it so that they could have what I had. It's not that I mean, I like it, but it's not my number one favorite thing to do. I want them to have something passed on from what I knew my grandparents used to do. So they have that little connection.
Nice. What was your favorite uh dish, whether Trinidadian or Guyanese, to eat growing up?
Growing up,
Mhm.
uh, fry aloo and sada roti. That was my
Um,
number one. I like aloo anything. Fry aloo and sada roti is the number one.
I love sada roti. Yes, it just goes with anything. I feel like roti is just the perfect, the perfect dish. You can eat it by itself. You can eat it with butter, pumpkin, anything, curry. It's
Yes.
delicious. Well, I love what you've discussed about your childhood and how your parents have really tried to instill a sense of pride in your culture in you. Let's talk about your journey of becoming an attorney. You said
Mhm.
that you wanted to be an attorney from a very young age. Can you tell us about the defining moment in your life where you realized that law was one of your passions?
Yes, I think it was a period about 2 years, seventh and eighth grade. Seventh grade, I took civics, and in eighth grade, I took US history. And I loved US history. I would be a treasure hunter, but I figured the next closest thing was a lawyer to US history. And so from that moment, I just figured that was the path to get me as close to history as possible was being a lawyer.
You fell in love with history and civics, and you decided to go ahead and go on to law school. Now, according to the American Bar Association's 2020 profile of the legal profession, nearly all people of color are underrepresented in the legal profession compared with their presence in the US population. Several years ago, the profession was even noted by the Washington Post as being the least diverse in the nation. And actually, I can recall around 2017 or 2018, there were a group of Black lawyers who took to Twitter to talk about their experience in the profession. And something that they pointed out, they stated, look, law school is hard. Getting into law school is hard, but Black lawyers only make up 3% of all lawyers in this country. We need more minorities within the profession. Now, your alma mater, the University of Miami, excuse me, actually ranks within the top 50 law schools that are racially and ethnically diverse. When you think back, what role did diversity and representation play in your decision to become an attorney?
Yes, so my uncle, he was a lawyer. And so he lived in New Jersey. So I wasn't around him day to day. And
Mhm.
so diversity on a local standard, I grew up in Miami, so it was so diverse where we grew up. So I never thought that there would be a barrier to a profession because I was a minority, because everybody I was in class with, everyone I grew up with, they were diverse. In my community, it was, African Americans, Haitians, Cubans, a smaller Caribbean community, but everyone was diverse. So we were all in school. We were all going to go somewhere. It was never a thought in me that I couldn't be something because I was a minority.
Hmm. Were there any specific challenges that you remember facing in law school, and how did you overcome those challenges?
Specific obstacles. Well, I guess, looking back now that I'm a mom and I don't have too much time to spare to myself, I guess like when I was in law school, I was working two jobs, I was studying, I was, just trying to make it to the top. I was on law review as well. And so,
Mm.
you know, I wouldn't have had to have those two jobs and work so hard if I did not come from a minority background. I know I had one encounter with somebody in school that they were genuinely shocked that everybody's tuition wasn't paid for by their parents. Like they didn't, their background was like the complete opposite of mine. Where me and my friends, we couldn't relate to anybody whose tuition was 100% paid for by their parents. And so they came from the opposite, where they just assumed that everybody was getting everything paid for. So they had a lot more free time. But I guess, that was an obstacle. But you just, when you were hustling, you make it work. Like you will find time, you will sleep when you pass the bar, you'll make it work.
Despite the challenges you faced in your pursuit of becoming an attorney, what gave you the reassurance that you had made the right decision for your life?
Um, I felt like I made the right choice. I understood it more when I switched over to working with people as opposed to faceless corporations. So when I first started out, I was representing huge global national companies.
Mhm.
And I was like, is this for me? I don't feel like that warm, fuzzy feeling. I feel like I'm helping, not the bad guy, but I don't feel like I'm making a difference. I'm making a dent. And so now that I'm on the other end, I'm a trademark attorney. I work with people one-on-one, and they're starting their business, they're starting their passions. And that is what gives me the reassurance. Yes, this was the right track. I'm making a difference, and it's a good feeling.
Love that. Um, Now, Florida does have the second largest number of businesses in the industry of trademark and patent lawyers and attorneys in the country, California being number one. You had several specialty options to choose from in terms of which which path of law you wanted to go down. Why did you choose to become a trademark and business law attorney?
Yeah. So when you first graduate, it was not a thought in my mind, like what kind of law I want to practice. It's like I want to get hired. I want to get hired by a big firm.
Yeah.
And then I started a family, and then it really hits you like, what do I want to be spending my time? What's going to be taking me away from my family that's worth doing? So I explored a lot of different options. When I opened my own firm, I practiced in different kind of areas. And then I landed on trademarks, and it was the best feel for the work-life balance. I could make my schedule how I wanted. I could work for myself. And then when I'm away from my family working, I feel good because I'm helping people with their businesses. So it was the best work-life balance for me.
What are the biggest obstacles that you have found for Caribbean business owners?
One of the biggest obstacles that I found, and then just what I've experienced growing up, is that you don't know what you don't know. And so it's just like, if you haven't been exposed to it, if you don't have access to it, you don't even know that you need something. And so just by sharing my social media videos or my blogs, I try to at least, let people know this is an option out there. This could be for your business. This could save your business so much money if you invest in this in the beginning. So they at least know that that is an option. So they can find the right person for them to handle it. So it could be me, it could be someone else. Like, just know that you have this option available that can save you a lot of headache later on. Do your legal procedures in the beginning. So this way it'll save your company in the end.
Let's talk about your petition, which is called the Petition to Preserve and Digitize Indian Indentured Servant and Enslaved African Records in the Caribbean. You have expressed concern about the ship records not only crumbling, but also being at risk of being lost. In one part of your petition, you state the local governments of the Caribbean and the British government should ensure that these papers are properly preserved and also available to everyone online. Tell us more about this petition and where it currently stands in terms of getting responses from the local governments of the Caribbean and the British government.
Yes. So a few years ago, I started researching my history, and then I found out that there were these ships that brought the Indians and also ships that brought Africans to the Caribbean. And then I found out that there are a lot of records, relating to these ships, the ship information, the passenger information,
Mhm.
and some of them have been scanned, most of them have not, and almost none of them are available online for us to see. And so it's really important to me, like, these are papers, and if they're not protected in a climate controlled environment, free of bugs and everything like that, they are going to be lost. And we already have such little access to our history. If these papers are lost, then so much value in them will be lost forever. And so we want them to be protected so that way we can have our history, but also so we can maybe figure out which ancestor, if possible, came from the motherlands. And by doing that, you can scan the information and then you make it available online for everyone to check, because not everyone can go to Trinidad and Guyana and these Caribbean countries. Most of them are also in the UK. We can't go there and spend weeks just sifting through to try to understand it, because even if we do go there, we don't know how to read it, what it means. We need somebody to help with that. And it's more than just looking for a name that sounds like last name. There's so much more to that, because last names are a Western concept. I'm learning that it wasn't a big thing in India around the time of colonialism, and so it's a lot of work to try to figure out where we came from. But if we don't have these papers, then we may never be able to find out where we came from. And so I was inspired. It was around the Trinidad Independence Day last year. I love a book by Eric Williams, The History of the People of Trinidad and Tobago. And he wrote that whole book in 30 days to launch it in time for Trinidad's first Independence Day. And I was like, I've been wanting to do this petition for months now to raise awareness. So I'm just going to launch it now, because he gave that push. And so I gathered signatures. We have about 3,000 signatures, and I've emailed and sent out physical mail correspondence to whatever official I can find for Trinidad, Guyana, and CARICOM. I have not received a response. The only response I did receive was from the Trinidad embassy. They told me they forwarded it to CARICOM. So I didn't receive anything. Maybe it got lost in snail mail. So I'm hoping this year maybe I would try a social media campaign to reach out to just raise awareness that these documents are there. David Dabadine tried to raise awareness maybe 20, 30 years ago, and still nothing has been finalized. And I just really want these documents protected.
Mhm. While compiling your research for the petition, what new information did you discover that surprised you?
Um, New information that I discovered, well, anything that I found on the ship, whatever I wrote about, that was like new to me. So
Okay.
it's only been a few years since I've been learning about my history. So anytime I can find an anecdote about what happened on a ship,
Hmm.
that was new and exciting. And a lot of the information I got from Coolie Woman by Guy Bahadur, and it is just a great book because she actually went to the UK and sifted through those records and then like summarized it for us. So that was a monumental task. And so whenever I find that she talks about a ship and then what happened on that ship, it just feels so amazing that she took the time to do that for us. And so I think, you know, she did the huge step. So by me reminding people this is what happened on this day, it's kind of like, let's not forget where we came from.
Absolutely. And that book, Coolie Woman, I actually found out about it through you on your social
Oh,
media page. And it's on my one of my reads for this year that I've downloaded. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for providing that
I'm so
information.
glad. It is a long read and a tough read, but it is just like our encyclopedia. This is the closest thing that we have to understanding what's in those records.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
another thing that was, new to me was I'm trying to follow trail for the Indian indentured servant records. And I have, the vaguest blueprint, the most vague, but it's so hard for me to find out what records there are, what they mean for enslaved Africans, because I know they must kept some sort of record. They may not have names like the indentured servants had, but I can't even find any ship records relating to that. I was able to find, and this is something new, after I launched the petition, somebody emailed me that there was a gentleman in the UK. He launched the petition to scan and preserve the what's called slave registers in Trinidad, and that's after slavery. I think it's a lot of census information in Trinidad. And so those are scanned and digitized in ancestry.com. But I
Right.
can't find ship information, what happened, where they came from, ages, guesstimates, things like that. I agree with you. And also enslaved Africans records, they're even more delicate because they're maybe, they're even older because when slavery was abolished, then indentured servitude started. So who knows what condition those records, if we still have them, what they're in. And so those really need to be protected with the utmost urgency.
Hmm. Now, you said that you are prepared to take on a social media campaign as another tool to raise awareness about the petition. Do you have any other ideas that you might consider if you don't get any responses from the local governments that you have reached out to in the Caribbean?
So I'm gonna try with a social media campaign next. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe a few reels to increase awareness. Maybe, I've commented on the president's social media a few times. And then maybe just, go back and keep mailing. I'm just going to keep being persistent because, sometimes it takes more than once. So do online targeting, but also go back to physical mailing and just do whatever it takes. Whenever I have a phone number, I will try to call as well.
Okay. Okay. Now you're balancing a successful career while exploring and maximizing on your other passions. So that includes your petition. You also run an amazing blog. You're also balancing being a mother and a wife. How do you integrate your family into the work that you do?
Well, so my husband, he is my office manager for my firm. So we are very integrated. So he runs the business side and I run the legal side.
Okay.
And so he also understands that like I have to carve out a certain, window in my week, like even if it's just 1 hour, I have to do history because that's just like so important to me. So no matter how busy my schedule is, he's supportive of like whatever I need to do for the history, he'll support that as well. And
Okay.
so we try to make our schedule where we only work while the kids are in school. So as soon as they come out of school, for the most part, we do not work, and we just have to be as efficient as we can during that window.
Okay, that's a good idea. I love that. It's one big family business. Does anybody else in your family work with you?
It's primarily me and my husband, and so our family is like our community, so we see them as often as we can. But in the firm, it's just me and my husband.
Okay, nice. What kind of conversations do you engage your children in about the work that you do?
But they're very young, so I haven't really talked to them. They know mommy's a lawyer.
Okay.
They hear me talking about trademarks a lot, so I heard them saying like I do trademarks, but they are 5, 4, and 2.
Yeah,
And so I will slowly start to explain that, mommy's helping with businesses and helping to protect business names and logos and things like that.
wonderful. Melissa, now that you have had these various life experiences, you've settled into your career, you're now able to explore other things that you are passionate about. What advice would you go back and give your young and ambitious self?
Yes. So I wrote down a few key points, so I want to make sure to hit them. So I would say I would have wished I told myself or knew back then to start a blog, a website, just share my passion, because I found out when I was sharing my passion through social media, I was able to connect with so many people, and they kind of fast tracked me in the right direction, and the right books, and that's how I was able to learn faster. So, a few years ago, I've always loved my history. So a few years ago, I started asking about like, what kind of books can I get? And then my aunt and uncle told me to email this guy, David Dabadine, and then he recommended a book. And then that kind of started a rabbit trail. And now whenever I post something, somebody will reach out, and then I'll get a new clue, a new resource. And so I wish I would have, started an online presence sooner.
Mhm.
And this way to maybe just, establish my domain authority, but also connect with other people.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, you're doing it now and you're doing a great job at it. To me, your online presence is growing tremendously. And I love the work that you do online. I really think your petition is going to do well if you go forward with that social media campaign. I really do.
I
Well,
really appreciate it. And you're doing such great work by, helping to connect women in the community, because it's so nice to see someone and connect with someone from a similar background. It's great to connect with other Trinity and Guyanese, but even if you have just Caribbean people, it's just a different vibe that you can connect to. Anybody in the Caribbean, it's like a similar playing field, and it's like a nice home feeling.
absolutely. And we're like one big family, no matter how far or wide we are.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, Melissa, it has been a pleasure having you on as the first guest of the Passion Tea. Your work will impact generations to come, and your petition, I believe, is the first of many steps in ensuring that we don't lose this integral part of our history. If there is someone watching today who wants to sign the petition, read your blog articles, or even set up a consultation with you, tell us where we can go to find all of those things.
For sure. So for my legal website, that's mdgrlaw.com. And my history website is westindiandiplomacy.com. And so you can also access my legal website by going to trademarknearme.com.
Okay.
My Instagram is West Indian History.
Listen,
And yes, on all my Instagrams are linked. So you can connect to my business page at Lawyer Melissa R, like that too, as well.
well, thank you so much, Melissa. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much too.
Thank you all for tuning in to the first episode of The Passion Tea. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the incredible work being spearheaded by Melissa. If you would like to schedule a consultation, sign her petition, or if you would like to follow her work, I will leave her information in the description box as well as in the comments. Tell me what you all think about Melissa's petition. Comment below and let's get this conversation started.